But here is a CNN reporter, and again, this guy, a grizzled reporter who has covered wars for years now. And, well, I'll just let it play out.
In Ra'im, Israel, earlier today, that's the site of the music festival where Hamas did mass slaughter of young people, taking hostages, rapes. Reportedly, there were young women raped next to the dead bodies of their friends. Now you're in Sderot, Israel, just miles from the Gaza border. Israel's been pummeling Gaza all day. What do you expect will happen this evening?
Yeah, Jake, I was hoping we might talk. I'm hit emotionally by listening to the testimony of the people that you were talking to just there, because we've been there in Ra'im and witnessed firsthand what I think they're talking about, that they've seen the video images of, where people had come out, those young party goers at the music festival there, had run away from Hamas, who were just murdering and slaughtering them in the fields as they ran away. And they'd got to their cars, and we saw the line of cars and how they were shot up and how they were strewn across the road as people were trying to escape and trying to save their lives and drive away. And next to that was one of those rocket shelters. There's one just here, but there was one just there. And I went to have a look, and there were torn up shoes outside, and I could see bloodstains. And as I went inside, and this is why I wanted to speak about it now, because it being there, I'm trying to be professional, and I'm trying to tell the story and bear witness to the barbarity and the callous, cruel, cold-blooded, calculated killing that Hamas was ripping upon those poor innocent young people. But that, listening to that conversation you were having there with John Kirby, it puts me in mind to reflect on physically what we saw. So let me explain. Because the smell when you step into the shelter is kind of what hits you first, and you realize that this stuff on the floor is what you fear it is. It's blood, and you realize in an instant, looking at the strewn shell casings on the floor, looking at the bullet holes in the concrete in front of you, and you can understand what happened, that people were used to going to these shelters for safety and security from Hamas rockets. And when Hamas were chasing them, they hoped that there was safety and security in these concrete bunkers. And of course, there wasn't, because we could see what happened. Hamas had gone in there with guns and quite literally shot them. This is a deployment of military hardware going by. I'm going to pause. Had quite literally shot them in calculated cold blood as they were cowering there on the floor, and the blood's on the wall, and the blood's on the ceiling, and the bullet holes are in the concrete wall. And you know in that instant how horrible and how terrible it was. And your conversation brought that back. But I'm moving on. But I wanted to share that because it's important for people to understand. But I'll move on to tonight and what's happening here, where we.
This gets even more compelling actually in a moment, but I just wanted to take a quick second and I watched this and I reflect on the fact that it's funny. He said that, I'm trying to be a professional and I'm trying to be objective or sort of removed from the situation. No human being should have to be like that. No human being should be compelled to set aside their humanity for the sake of their profession. How can a person not be a compassionate human being and recognize the horror of the evil that you're witnessing? And I just got to say, I wish we had more of this from reporters. This is a great moment for our media. This is a great moment for journalism. This is a great moment for us to learn something. And I don't want to use it to bash the media. I want to use this to learn and make a point and amplify that point, because we always hear that journalists are supposed to be just these objective automatron robots. And it's a lie. Nobody is like that unless they're a sociopath. When a reporter acts objective and says, well, I don't really have a dog in this race, it's the same thing as when you're a sports reporter announcing a football game. It's just somewhere deep down, you actually are rooting for somebody. And the lie isn't that there's bias in the media. The lie is that they pretend not to have bias in the media. Can't we just be real and everybody say who they are and what they believe and what they stand for, and then continue to do your job? But at least we can relate to you as a human being, and by the way, yes, we can shoot or absorb your reporting and absorb the messages you're giving us through that context of knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you believe. But that's reality. Why can't we be real when we're talking about the news and events around us? And this is real, and it's incredibly refreshing.
You
Yeah,
don't
now.
actually, Nick. You don't actually have to move
It
on. You don't.
seems
You
and
don't.
feels a bit, yeah.
You don't actually have to
Mm.
move on because look, this is one of the most horrifying terrorist attacks in the history of the world. And one of the things about it is not only is proportionally, if you look at the size of Israel in terms of population, is not only in that sense is it worse than 9/11, is that this was done person to person, individual to individual, terrorist to child, terrorist to young girl, terrorist to senior citizen. The remarkably up close and personal nature of this barbarism is one of the things that strikes you about it. I mean, terrorism is all horrible, no matter how it's done, whether it's an airplane into a building or a suicide bomber or whatever, it's all awful. But the viciousness, the pure inhumanity of these teams of Hamas terrorists going into these neighborhoods, these towns, these kibbutzim, into this music festival where young people were just trying to listen to music and wreaking this evil upon them.
And it was so organized, Jake, that you look at the Hamas vehicles there and they've all got numbers written on them. And you see the body armor of Hamas lying there on the ground where they've been killed. You see everything's numbered. This was organized. They came in a systematic way and just, as you say, unleashed this barbarism. But when you're standing there in front of it, you understand it as you do, as John Kirby does, as our audience does. You understand that this was, as you say, face to face, utter barbarism and terror in the final moments for those people. And we can only think about their families in this moment. Yeah, that's what we come here to do, to bear witness, to tell what we see, and we have. And thank you.
They bore witness to what they saw, and they did it in a human way. Like I said, I just want to emphasize, it's just nice to see humanity on full display there.